In this video, we are going to be talking about examples of subject of formula. So for this particular example, we are going to be making B the subject of formula. So to start off, we write out the equation. So we have x over a plus y over b equals 1. Now I'm going to be subtracting x over a from both sides. So I'll be saying subtracting x over a from both sides, which is ultimately x over a plus y over b minus x over a equals to 1 minus x over a. So x over a cancels out x over a. Y over b equals to 1 minus x over a. So ultimately I have y over b equals to 1 minus x over a. Now I could divide both sides by b. I prefer to take the LCM of this part. So I'd have a uniform LCM, just one LCM on both sides. So it will be y over b equals to the LCM of a and 1 is a. So a divided by 1 is a times 1, which is a minus x. So in this form, I could take the reciprocal of both sides. So if I'm reciprocating both sides, or taking the reciprocal of both sides. Note, for you to take the reciprocal of both sides, you need to have a fraction in the form of, say, 1 over a equals to 1 over b. So if you're taking the reciprocal of these two numbers, it becomes 1 over a, which is 1 over b. So the tactics to use when you have this form of equation. So going back to the question, we have taking the reciprocal, we have 1 over y over b, which is equal to 1 over a minus x over a, which is equal to, now 1 divided by y over b is equal to 1 divided by a minus x over a. So ultimately, if I'm to switch the denominator and the numerator, it will change the division sign to multiplication. So I'll be saying 1 times b over y is still equal to 1 times a over a minus x over a minus x, so that b over y is equal to a over a minus x. Now we have y dividing the b, and remember we need b as our subject of formula, so we have to multiply through by b on both sides. So if I'm saying times y here, I'm going to be still saying a over a minus x times y, so that y cancels out y, and then b equals a times y, which is ay over a minus x. So the subject of formula of this equation, when b is subject of formula of this equation, this is the form. So b is ultimately equal to ay divided by a minus x. So let's take another example. Okay, so this is another example, and I would like you to make g the subject of formula to see how far you've come with the concept. Okay, so to start off, we have v on this part of the equation, and we have roots of gd open brackets y plus 3h over d. So to remove the roots from this side of the equation, we ultimately have to power both sides by the root of this side, which is 2. This is the square root, so this is 2. So if we're powering both sides by 2, so this will be v squared square root powered lgd, open the bracket, y plus 3h over d, and then remember all of that gets squared, and the square cancel the square root, so we have v squared is equal to gd, open bracket, y plus 3h over d. Now ultimately, if you take a look at this, you have d and open bracket y plus 3h over d multiplying g. So what we are going to do here is just divide both sides by this part of this equation. So we are going to be saying divided by d, open bracket, y plus 3h over d. So you have divided by d, open bracket, y plus 3h over d. So we have this part cancelling out this part. So ultimately the answer is g equals to v squared divided by d, open bracket, y plus 3h over d. So that's the answer. Let's take another example. Okay, so this example is a bit more complex. So you have a question here on the screen. I would suggest you try this one out. Make G the subject of formula, pause the video and try this one out. Okay, so you have T equals to 2 pi, and you have a root h squared plus k squared over gh. Now I'm going to be dividing both sides by 2 pi because that's what's hinging these roots here. So dividing both sides by 2 pi, you'd have c over 2 pi equals to 2 pi over 2 pi, and then you have square root of h squared plus k squared over gh. So that 2 pi cancels 2 pi, and then you have square root of h squared plus k squared over gh, which is equal to c over 2 pi. And then we have h here, gh here, so you'd have to take, and we have a square root, so we can't do anything in here without removing the square root. So we have to take the square of both sides to remove the square root here. So we have square of h squared, that's k over gh, and then you have a squared, then there's the square root, and you have c over 2 pi, and then you have a squared, so that this square cancels out the square root. So you have h squared plus k squared over gh, which is ultimately equal to c over 2 pi squared. So in this case, I could simplify it further by saying h squared plus k squared over gh equals to c squared over 4, that's 2 pi squared is 4 pi squared. So in this case, I have just single denominators here, so I could take the reciprocal of both sides to make g come on top of here and to make 4 pi come on top of here. Okay, so we have the reciprocal of both sides becomes h squared plus k squared over gh, which is equal to c squared 1 divided by c squared over 4 pi squared actually. So the reciprocal here becomes 1 divided by h squared plus k squared divided by gh, which is equal to 1 divided by c squared over 4 pi squared. So switching this, you have 1 times gh over h squared plus k squared, which is equal to 1 times 4 pi squared over c squared. So this becomes gh over h squared plus k squared equals to 4 pi squared over c squared. So you have h squared plus k squared dividing g and h. So you want to multiply h squared plus k squared on both sides to eliminate h squared plus k squared. So we have gh over h squared plus k squared times h squared plus k squared. This is bracketed, by the way. So this is equal to 4 pi squared over c squared times h squared plus k squared plus k squared. So this is so h squared plus k squared cancels out h squared plus k squared. So you have gh equals to 4 pi squared over c squared, and then you have h squared plus k squared. Okay, so you have g and h multiplying themselves. So to remove g from h, you ultimately have to divide both sides by h. So we have g over h, gh over h equals to 4 pi squared over h squared plus k squared over c squared divided by h. So ultimately h cancels out h, and then g, the one we've been looking for since, is 4 pi squared open brackets h squared plus k squared divided by hc squared. So that's the answer of the equation. Now let's understand more about subject of formula. I'll leave a link to a video that explains the concepts properly. Thank you for watching. You can leave a like and subscribe. Thank you.